Last week, the U.S. Department of Education approved New Mexico's plan for adopting education reform standards under the Every Student Succeeds Act, or ESSA. Now, while the 160-page plan received high ratings by an independent panel of educators, at least one teachers union and some state lawmakers are criticizing it. There's a lot to talk about here with this week's Line Opinion panelists. I'm joined now by Laura Sanchez-Reve. She's an attorney at Cuddy & McCarthy, LLP. Merritt Allen of Vox Optima, LLC is here. Former State Senator Diane Snyder is with us. And Harry Van Buren, professor at UNM's Anderson School of Management, is here as well. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Now, Harry, start us off here. The American Federation of Teachers of New Mexico told the Santa Fe New Mexican that the plan follows, quote, failed policies that the Public Education Department was already doing under former Secretary Skandera, end quote. What do you make of that position, first off?
Well, I think there's a lot of really interesting things that are going on right now with regard to this particular debate. So on the one hand, we shouldn't be terribly surprised if they're making that sort of argument. But it really feels to me like the state discussion of education is stuck. There's a lot of focus on, if we think about three things. So we've got social determinants of student achievement, so sort of the broader environment, parental determinants, and then school determinants. It feels like a lot of the discussion has been on school determinants, and I think that makes a lot of sense from a policy standpoint. There is not all that much discussion of the other two. What is it the parents are doing? What's going on in the broader community? And so I think the real danger is we haven't seen a lot of increase in student achievement, and particularly in terms of student readiness for college or work or other things like that. So it's really hard for me to see, given the research that's been done in this area, how anything related to what the state is doing is going to move the needle.
Right, good point there. We'll probably circle back to that in a quick second. There's something in there I want to touch on as well. Merritt, the idea of giving states a lot of control here, that it sounds great on paper, and obviously the feds have signed off on our deal, and it sounds like they like it too, but for the critics, what's your sense of where they're coming from? That the state, in essence, can have almost complete control of local school districts if one's to believe the critics here.
Well, preparing for this topic, I realized I needed to crowdsource because I've been out as Silver City Public Schools for 30 years now and have children.
Right.
So I reached out to some teachers who I'd gone to school with in Silver City, and it was really interesting speaking with a kindergarten teacher and an 8th grade teacher. Those are two major stepping points. You're getting ready for first grade for reading. You're getting ready for high school and career. So those are
huge
key points.
Yep.
Both of them are kind of on board with Common Core, and that's what this is all about. Is Common Core. It started in the Bush administration, the Obama administration carried it on, and we still have it. So it's how we implement Common Core. And the frustration is the requirement, or what they perceive as the requirement, to get all kids to the baseline in a single year when they have no control on the environments the children have come from. And you could see that being particularly important in kindergarten and in 8th grade.
I see.
And so they're looking for tools for intervention from the state or their districts so that kids can get as is often said, a head start, and they also noted that some of the factors that keep some children from progressing have nothing to do with the teacher. You need a social worker. You need some sort of intervention that a teacher can't fix.
That's right.
So,
or shouldn't,
So I think everyone wants this to work. Everyone wants the best for our students, but getting from A to Z, there are a lot of letters in between that we're skipping.
That's a good point there. Diane, one of the, again, where the critics are coming from here, if you think about it, what's laid out in this plan is if a school is failing, the state can take some fairly dramatic steps here, meaning one of them turning it into a charter school, another one being they can, in essence, walk in and wipe out the administration that's in place now, basically take over the entire school, but there's not really a sense of how one would fix that if that was to be the case. Do you know what I mean? I need a little more detail here, don't we, about how this would work?
We certainly need more detail, but the thing that I think about it is you first have to have a dream. You first have to have a goal, and then you figure out how you get there.
Right.
And right now, we don't seem to be all on the same goal. Or we may be on the same, want the same goal, but we're so tangled up in how the process of how we're going to reach that goal. And there's so much dissension among every group.
Right.
So I'd having my father served on the school board in my hometown, in my district, school district, I'm reluctant to say you take away local control,
Right.
but I look at it we have in New Mexico 87 school districts, 87.
That's right.
We have 33 counties. How can we possibly fund and take care of all of those schools? I'd like to see part of the plan include that we would have, like we do telemedicine, that we have education. That if you've got a fabulous history teacher in Albuquerque, that we could televise it to our rural areas instead of having a somewhat good teacher in the area. That your school boards could be joint school boards for several, we could combine, but that is a political battle that's not popular.
That's right.
So maybe by having this plan, we can legitimize, and there's somebody to blame for doing it,
right.
but we could reach the point of reducing that number of 87 school districts, combining some of them for the betterment of the student,
right.
not the school board,
Right.
but the student.
Yeah,
and I think we need to look at it from that approach.
That's a good point there, absolutely. Interestingly, Laura, a small victory I would think for the Martinez administration that they won praise for their A through F grading system for schools. That's been a highly controversial thing here for years. But it's got the imprimatur now of the federal government saying, it's not a bad way to go. But that's a tough pill to swallow for a lot of folks who have been fighting this grading system now for years.
Yeah, and it certainly wasn't invented by them. I mean, it came from Texas. It was something that they imported
Right.
into New Mexico, and it certainly caused a lot of consternation from a lot of school districts. And the other thing is that, it's an A through F, but if a school gets a failing grade, gets an F, you can apply for a waiver and get pushed up to one of the higher grades. So if that were the case for students, and if you got an F, you could sort of waiver your way up to a higher grade, then what's the point of having the F? And I think that's one of the criticisms of that grading system.
Right.
But I think the bigger picture is, ESSA was adopted in December of 2015, so it was actually an Obama era change, and it went from Nickelby, or what's called No Child Left Behind, to ESSA. So that was a big shift because No Child Left Behind had some very specific requirements, testing requirements. It was very much focused on what the federal government was requiring. And so the state essentially implemented what was in the No Child Left Behind. ESSA signaled a lot more flexibility for the localities. So essentially the local school districts, ideally the state would have more flexibility to implement all of these requirements. The problem is that here in New Mexico, we've seen the PED and school districts and teachers be at loggerheads constantly.
Right.
And so for the past 7 years under this administration, you've really seen a hammer approach, where more of a scalpel approach is what would be useful under ESSA.
Right.
And one of the problems is that you have, for example, I think what some of the discussion has been, and the takeover of a school, I think, is an overreach from PED. Even though it's something that this administration, and I'm not surprised that DeVos and this administration approved it and said that, yeah, this looks great. Essentially, they would take over a school. How would they do that when they don't have teachers at PED? Many of those people have not had classroom experience. Our previous secretary didn't have classroom experience of that sort. I mean, it's just how would that work implementing wise? So I think there's some real details that are a problem for that. And I think in terms of the school district and what Diane was suggesting, I should caveat with our school, our law firm represents something like 75 to 80% of the school districts in the state. So we're well aware of some of the challenges that happen at the school district level, and it would be almost an impossibility to get them to agree to cede control of their area to join forces with another school district, because it is so localized.
Sure.
And there are local elections and people that have their own very strong feelings, even within a city. I think of West Las Vegas and the city of those two. They have a school
For
district
example,
where things are
that's right.
split. And here in Albuquerque we have one,
Yeah.
but it's huge. And
That's
so
right.
I think there's just a lot of problems with the way that this with the way that this ESSA plan has filtered down.
We're going to track this one closely. This could be very interesting for New Mexico as this plays along.